Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lecture 3, where we'll be talking today about evaluating TFL sentences. So, our aim today is basically to come away with a mechanism, a tool, that will help us figure out when TFL sentences of any type are true or false, and then also we can use this tool to evaluate things like validities of arguments, whether some sentences are jointly consistent or inconsistent. That's basically what we're going to be doing today. So more specifically, today's lecture is going to have 5 parts. First, we're going to start off by talking about truth functionality and how it applies to our truth functional logic. Then we'll segue to talking about truth tables. So truth tables are going to be the mechanism we're going to use to do all the fun stuff, at least for the first couple weeks. So what we're going to have here is actually 2 videos. First, we'll talk through the characteristic truth tables for each connective in TFL. If you remember, there's 5 connectives, so there's 5 characteristic truth tables. Then we're going to talk about complete truth tables. And complete truth tables are basically going to be truth tables for any TFL sentence or any collection of TFL sentences. Basically, it's stitching all of the stuff with characteristic truth tables together to get us the full-blown machinery. Then we'll talk about semantic concepts and how we can use complete truth tables to assess things like validity of arguments, joint consistency of sentences, things like that. And then finally, I'll talk to you a little bit about how we can kind of save ourselves some effort sometimes, and instead of doing full-blown truth tables, do some shortcuts and some partial tables. So that's the plan. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so our first section is again on sort of truth functionality in general, and then kind of applying it to TFL. So let's note something about TFL, right? Any non-atomic sentence of TFL is going to be composed of atomic sentences, right, which if you recall, right, are capital letters, and they're going to be linked by sentential connectives. And as you remember from last lecture, there's only 5 sentential connectives. Every non-atomic sentence of TFL is going to be built up using the rules that we defined at the end of lecture 2. And importantly, all the connectives in truth functional logic are truth functional. That is, we can say, connectives truth functional if and only if the truth value of a sentence featuring that connective as its main logical operator is determined uniquely by the truth values of the constituent parts. That's kind of a complex way basically to say a connective's truth functional if the truth value of a sentence featuring it is determined entirely by the truth value of the parts. We fix the values of the parts, then we figure out exactly which connective it is, and it will play a certain kind of way, and then that's going to give us the truth value of whatever complex sentence we have featuring it. Okay. So what's nice, again, in TFL is that all 5 of our connectives are truth functional. So to determine the truth value of a TFL sentence, no matter how complex it is, all we have to do is know or fix the truth values of the components. More specifically, we can fix the truth value of the atoms, and then that's going to bubble up and give us the truth value of all complex sentences. Because remember, we have highly restrictive rules for sentence construction. So that's kind of nice. And in fact, really, we can push this idea even further. It's not just that every connective in TFL is truth functional, it's that really that's all it is. So every connective in TFL does nothing more than kind of map us between truth values. That is, when we symbolize a sentence in TFL, we're ignoring everything besides the contribution the truth value of component parts makes the truth value of the whole sentence. And this is kind of important, and it highlights something both that's good and bad about TFL as a language. The good, I guess, is that there's lots and lots of nuance in natural language. There's things like implicature, tone, emphasis, etc., right? None of that is going to be retained or appear in TFL, right? All we have is just the truth functionality of these expressions. So we can kind of highlight this out by thinking about an English sentence. So take, Brittany had a baby and got married. Now, in sort of everyday English, it strictly doesn't have an order, but there's an implied order. That is, Brittany first had a baby, and then she got married. And that's why this is sort of scandalous information. But when we symbolize this into something like TFL, we'd really treat it as like, let's use capital B for Brittany had a baby, capital M for Brittany got married. It's going to be symboled as B conjunction M. But here, there's no implication of order. And we can even see it. Why? Because this is equivalent to if we flip it around. Right? Put more bluntly, there is no implicature in TFL. Now, what this really means is that, as I mentioned, I think in Lecture 1 and in Lecture 2, when we're going from our English, say, to TFL, we're not translating, we're symbolizing. When we treat a TFL sentence as symbolizing an English sentence, what we're really doing is we're saying that our representative TFL sentence is going to have the same truth value as the English sentence. And this isn't really translation, because look, translations should really preserve meaning. And TFL is just fundamentally unequipped to do anything with meaning. All it can really handle is truth values and truth functionality. In this way, again, a symbolization key really just tells us that TFL atomic sentences should take the same truth value as some specific English sentence. So this is just kind of laying bare what our truth functional language does. So just to kind of wrap up this first video, right, we can see that any non-atomic sentence of TFL is going to be composed of atomic sentences linked by some of our sentential connectives. And when we're in TFL, the truth value of a complex sentence is going to be entirely determined by the truth values of the atoms that compose it. So cool. That's nice, right? Fix the values of the atoms, then the truth value of the sentence is just going to be determined. But how exactly does this determination go? Well, that's going to depend upon which connective is in play. And that takes us to the topic of our next video, which is the characteristic truth tables for each connective. So take care, and yeah, I will see you in the second video for this lecture.